Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with a guide for the upcoming Setsubun event in Fate Grand Order NA. Now, unlike most of the events we've gotten in Fate Grand Order so far, this event is very different. There is no event shop, there are no free quests, and there's no farming. But nonetheless, I will try my best to make this guide as comprehensive as possible, so to help you guys with trying to find what you need, I will include timestamps in the description down below so you can jump ahead to whichever part of the video you need the most. I also want to mention that in order to participate in this event, you need to have completed the Setsubun Chapter, so you need to have completed all of Part 1 of Fate Grand Order's story. So if you're a brand new player and you haven't finished the story yet, you won't be able to take part in this event. It's a very high level event. So with all that said, let's get into talking about just what Setsubun is. Let's start off with the servants first. Usually a new event means new servants, however there are no new servants for this event. There's no welfare servants either. Instead, we're going to be getting a banner that has a rate up for Kintoki, Shuten, Ibaraki, Raiko, and Archer Inferno. So this is just going to be a standard pickup gacha, although it is a very good one. There are 3 limited servants on rate up: Shuten, Kintoki, and Raiko. All 3 of them are pretty good. Shuten is an excellent pickup if you need an AoE assassin who specializes in kind of offering offensive support. Kintoki is an excellent boss-killing berserker who has some of the highest one-turn damage output in the game. And Raiko is great if you need an AoE berserker who's perfect for farming. As for the 4 stars, Ibaraki Doji is one of the best 4-star berserkers, as she possesses really strong damage and really good utility and defense. While Archer Inferno is also a top tier 4-star archer, capable of some really good damage output. If any of these servants interest you and you want to know more about them, I actually have spotlights available for all of them. I'll link those in the description down below so you can get a closer and better analysis. But for now, let's talk about the event craft essence. Now, we are going to be getting one new event craft essence, and that is the 5-star Demons and Clothing. It increases your crit strength and critical star drop rate by 10%, and increases your NP gauge by 30% at the start of the battle. In addition, it also increases your attack by 100% for this event. If you max limit break it, it's going to increase your crit strength and critical star drop rate by 15%, and your NP gauge by 50%, and it'll also increase your attack for the event by 200%. Now, this craft essence is only available as a reward for completing certain missions in the event. You will not be able to get it on the gacha, and all 5 copies of this craft essence are going to be given to you, so you don't have to farm for it, and you will be able to max limit break it if you complete the event. As I mentioned, Setsubun is going to be a completely different event than anything we've ever done before in Fate Grand Order NA. This is going to be a gauntlet-style challenge run. There's going to be a giant tower with over 200 floors, each floor containing a new battle, and beating a battle unlocks the next floor, and so on, until you complete all 200 challenges. Within this format, every 10 floors there's going to be a boss floor that is even more challenging than the ones before it. Beating floors will clear missions that grant you rewards like tickets, event craft essences, and ascension materials. This event is similar to the Prison Tower event in that this is not an event for new players. It's focused around being difficult with a bunch of mini challenge quests. Which means even if you rush through the story and beat Solomon, you won't be able to beat this event because it requires you to have a lot of good servants and capable teams. That is to say, you need to be a veteran player. Having 1 or 2 or even 3 strong servants isn't going to be enough, and the reason for that comes down to 2 major mechanics. The first one is there is no friend support. You can only use your own servants. So you can't rely on your friends Merlin or Waver or Hercules or anything like that. Only your own servants can be used for this event. The other major mechanic for this event is going to be the fatigue system. After you use a servant and win a battle, they're going to have the fatigue status. And that means they're going to be unusable for 4 hours. Essentially, every time you beat a quest, the servants that you beat it with are going to be on a 4-hour cooldown and can't be brought to the next quest until 4 hours passes. This status comes only after you beat a quest, so if you lose a mission, your servants won't be fatigued. They only get fatigued if they win. So you're limited to using your servants once every 4 hours, which means you actually have to strategize and plan out ahead of time and resource manage. For example, you're not going to want to bring Merlin or your best servants to a really easy battle. Fatigue also works on all copies of a servant, so even having multiple copies of a servant won't save you. There's also no item to remove fatigue, you just kind of have to deal with it. and wait until the timer is up. But thankfully, fatigue only applies to this event, so you can still use that servant to do other stuff like doing story missions or farming doors. One other major mechanic that helps combat fatigue though is going to be the hot springs. After you beat a certain amount of quests, you're going to unlock the hot springs, which allows you to put 5 of your servants into the hot spring, and it's going to reduce their fatigue by half. So if you win a battle with a servant and you put them in the hot spring, instead of being on fatigue for 4 hours, their cooldown is going to cut down to 2 hours. However, you do have to leave them in the hot spring until the time is up. So with this hot spring system in place, you can basically put your 5 best servants in the hot spring so you can use them much more frequently. And that's basically the mechanics of how Setsubun works. Let's go into some tips and strategies. Now, Setsubun is all about resource management. You have a limited amount of resources in your servants, so you have to make sure you use them very strategically. These are going to be a number of tips that you can use to maximize your efficiency in running through the tower. First and foremost, bring 3 servants per battle. You don't need to bring a full roster of 6 servants to every fight, you just need to bring a minimum of 3. There's really no reason to ever bring 6, unless you're going to a boss fight and you might need the extra help. But for the most part, try to limit your selections to just 3 servants per floor. And as I mentioned, every 10 floors is a boss floor. So for every floor ending in 1 through 9, I recommend using your weaker servants. You want to save your best servants for every 10th floor. So floor 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, etc. Those floors are very much designated as boss floors, and they're going to be mini challenge quests that actually require strategy. The 1 through 9 floors are just kind of generic enemy mobs. Another good tip for getting through this event is using solo strats. In other words, bringing 1 good servant and 2 really low-leveled servants for your non-boss floor runs. This way you don't have to bring 3 high-leveled servants to each quest, you can just bring 1 good servant and then the other 2 will just die while the single servant kinda carries himself. Again, this is just another way you can save resources for the more challenging levels. Speaking of which, you're going to want to use your craft essence for the event all the time. It's going to give you a 100% bonus damage, which is going to trivialize the non-boss floors, and it's kind of almost essential for some of the boss fights later on. So make sure you have your craft essence equipped to your main damage dealer, and max limit break it whenever you can. This next tip may be obvious, but put your best servants in the hot springs. This way they can tackle the boss floors quicker. And this doesn't just mean damage dealers, this means supports too. So if you have Merlin or Waver, they should always be in the hot springs because you're going to want them as available as possible. But speaking of damage, the most important servants for this event are going to be Berserkers, Alter Egos, Rulers, and Avengers. Those 4 classes of servants have VIP status. The reason why is because they can tackle floors where you don't have to worry about class advantage. You're going to realize really quickly that you're going to run out of servants for a specific class if you're trying to blitz through the floors. Eventually, all your sabers are going to be fatigued, or all your assassins are going to be fatigued. And when that happens, you should rely on a Berserker, or an Alter Ego, or a Ruler, or an Avenger who doesn't have as much worries about class advantage to kind of pick up the slack, instead of just waiting for your servants to get off of fatigue. So to that end, make sure you save those classes for when you absolutely need them. They should be kept in reserve for either boss fights or for when you run out of other viable options. Another thing to keep in mind is, like I said before, if your servants lose the battle, they will not be fatigued. So you can actually use this to your advantage as a scout. You can send in a team of 3 really low-level servants to kind of scout out a quest beforehand. So you can just send in a team of low-level servants so you can see what you're up against, and once they're all wiped out, you can then go in with the proper team. This is especially helpful for boss fights. And finally, my last tip for this event is make use of the Ember Gathering and Training Grounds daily quest. If we follow the JP model, which this video does assume we do, then we should have all of the Ember Gathering and Training Ground quests available to us during the duration of this event. Which means while your servants are fatigued, you can actually go out and start farming embers and monuments and pieces or whatever you need to level up other servants. You're going to want as many servants as possible to take on this event, so if you have some downtime while everyone is fatigued, you should be using it to farm some embers to bring up some other servants to use later on. Alright, now let's talk about the boss fights for this event. There's going to be 20 of them, one every 10 floors. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to give a quick rundown on each of these fights. I'm just going to name the boss, the gimmick, and give a quick tip. These are all going to be like mini challenge quests, so they all revolve around a really central gimmick, which means they aren't very difficult, you just have to find out how to approach them. So let's start off with the 10th floor. You'll be up against Hokusai. Her gimmick is going to be stacking crit buffs at the end of the turn once you break her break bar. And this is a very easy fight if you have an alter ego because they have class advantage. Or I recommend saving the NP on your damage dealer for after you break Hokusai's break bar. That way you can one-hit KO her before she has the opportunity to stack crit buffs. On floor 20, you're going to be fighting Gorgon. Her gimmick is going to be a 10,000 HP heal every turn once you break her break bar. If you have BB, this quest is easy mode. Otherwise, once again, I recommend bringing a really strong single target servant and saving your NP for after you break Gorgon's break bar just to burst her down really quickly. On floor 30, you're going to be fighting Holmes. Once you break his break bar, he's going to randomly grant himself either a crit buff, an attack buff, or a defense buff at the end of every turn. This is a really simple fight, just bring a single target berserker and OHKO him. For the 40th floor, you're going to be up against Benkei. He has a really strong defense buff, but a debuff against quick damage, so just bring quick servants and you can easily take care of him. Okita is especially great here, as are Fran and Lancelot. On the 50th floor, you're going to be up against Quetzalcoatl, and her gimmick is once you break her break bar, she's going to cast NP damage down on everyone, both enemies and allies, but also grant everyone NP charge per turn. For this battle, I recommend relying on really strong crit assassins or just using Jack. For floor 60, you're up against Tamamo. She has an AoE debuff cleanse and she can charge her allies' NP gain every turn. Her allies include Kyohime and Nihime. This isn't really a difficult fight, just focus down Kyohime because of her AoE and you should be good. Floor 70 has Caesar and Cleopatra. Caesar is going to cast Taunt on Cleopatra, and he's going to increase his max HP by 50,000 once you break his break bar. All you have to do for this fight is beat Cleo ASAP, and then burst down Caesar. Robin Hood, Gil, Ishtar, and Tesla are excellent for this fight. Floor 80 is home to Emiya. His gimmick is going to be buffing the crit rate of all his allies and removing all of your buffs once you break his break bar. Just save most of your buffing for after you break his break bar so you don't have all your stacks removed, but I do highly recommend using an AoE berserker like Raiko or Fran or Lancelot here. The 90th floor is going to be a battle against Ibaraki and Shuten. Ibaraki has NP up on all of her allies, and she also respawns Shutens if you kill them. The Shutens are going to heal Ibaraki for 30,000 HP whenever they die, and Ibaraki can charge their NP once you break her break bar. Just focus on Ibaraki first and then Shuten. All you need is a strong single target anti-female or demonic servant like Jack, Tawara, or Rama. For the 100th floor, you're up against Shuten. She basically has a super defense that reduces all damage by 90% for 5 turns after you break her break bar. Just bring a team that can stall out for 5 turns until her buff wears off, and then she's going to be super easy to kill as she only has 30,000 HP. For floor 110, you're going to be up against Gil Caster. He gives an attack and defense buff to all king servants, both allies and enemies. He also charges his allies' NP gauge by 1 and stuns himself when you break his break bar. I highly recommend bringing riders that have the king trait with them, like Ozzy, Maeve, Santa Alter, or Maid Alter, because Gil will also buff them. For floor 120, you'll be up against Medea and Medea Lily. They're going to poison your party, dealing 3k damage to everyone every turn. However, the poison is removable, so just bring someone who has a debuff clear. For floor 130, you're going to be up against Billy the Kid. He has a chance to gain NP charge whenever he's attacked, and he inflicts attack down whenever he hits you once you break his break bar. Try to minimize attacks on him by bringing a strong servant that can OHKO him like a strong single target Lancer. For floor 140, you're going to be up against Babbage. He has a chance to dodge all attacks, and once you break his break bar, he has an instant NP. Bring servants with Invincibility Pierce and Sure Hit like Drake. Floor 150 has Shinjuku Avenger. He's going to cast defense down on your whole team, but also give you a 5% NP charge per turn. He also decreases your party's max HP by 3,000 when you break his break bar. Again, if you have BB, this is easy mode, or you can just bring a Berserker and save your Noble Phantasm for after you break his break bar. On floor 160, you're going to be up against Martha Ruler. She's going to cast Taunt on one of your party members, and once you break her break bar, she grants herself HP recovery up. You can actually bait her into targeting a tank like Jean or Mosh and just wail on her with a Berserker or an Avenger. On floor 170, you're going to be up against Moriarty. He can charge his Noble Phantasm, and once you break his break bar, he's going to cast a 3x Guts, reviving himself with 20,000 HP, basically what Nero does. Bringing any strong single target Lancer like Ku or Skahawk or Bryn or Tamamo can make this fight very easy. On floor 180, you're going to be up against Drake. She grants crit strength up to all her allies, but also gives them arch resist down. And once you break her break bar, she grants crit rate up for all her allies. Just bring art servants who can NP spam like Hokusai, and you should have no problem with this. Floor 120 is going to be home to Raiko and Shuten. Raiko is going to cast crit damage up on herself, and once you break her break bar, all of her attacks are going to remove buffs from whoever she hits. She can also randomly kill Shuten and heal herself for 30,000 HP whenever a Shuten dies. Thankfully though, she is just a Berserker, so bringing any servant with a high single target damage can absolutely wreck her, someone like Jack, Carmilla, or Robin Hood. And finally, the last fight on floor 200 is going to be against Kintoki. Kintoki has Invincibility Pierce, but he also grants himself attack down. When you break his break bar, he's going to remove all the debuffs on himself. But once you break his second break bar, he's going to once again cleanse all the debuffs on himself, and he's also going to remove his attack down status. However, he'll gain defense down on himself. He can also charge his NP and buff his NP damage. Defensive buffers and taunters like Mosh, Leonidas, and George are ideal for this fight, since he does have Invincibility Pierce. You can also bring Iris Veil for Guts, and just bring some anti-male units like Maeve, Uriel, and Orion, who can actually Oko him even on his last HP bar. Now, if all of that wasn't enough, there's actually a real challenge quest for this event. If you choose to tackle this one, you're going to be up against Tomoe and 2 archer enemies. Tomoe is going to have 3 break bars, and the way this challenge quest is going to work is at the start of the battle, Tomoe is going to decrease your whole party's crit damage permanently, including sub-members. She's also going to randomly stun someone once for 1 turn. After you break one of her break bars, she's going to gain a permanent buff to her crit rate and damage. And once you break her second break bar, she's going to gain a 5-hit evade. So basically, she's going to rely on just critting you down. But Tomoe can also cast Taunt on one of her allies, forcing you to attack them instead of her. And killing one of her archer allies will result in Tomoe just respawning them and bringing them back alive, so she can just taunt them again. The archers can also respawn each other. In addition to this, the archers can also target one of your party members and buff block them, similar to a Hydra, and they can also buff Tomoe and charge her NP and debuff you. The strategy for this fight is simple. Bring AoE Lancers. Aresh, Karna, Lancer Arturia, Santa Loli Jolter, those are all great choices. Lancer Arturia is especially great because she can hit through evade, so you don't even have to worry about Tomoe having the 5-hit evade. Raiko is also an excellent choice to bring to this fight because she has a huge damage buff against Tomoe from her 3rd skill, as Tomoe is both demonic and Sky Earth. AoE or targetable protection from servants like Jean, Merlin, and Fuma is also excellent in case your damage dealer is being targeted, and debuff removal for any burns that Tomoe may inflict is also going to help. I highly recommend bringing the Atlas Mystic code, just because it's better for defense, and generally you're just going to want to AoE spam the enemy to death to try and disrupt them. And that's what Setsubun is going to be like. Just take your time and plan out how you want to use your servants carefully, as the most important aspect of this event is resource management, and your servants are your most precious resource. Remember to always have the event CE equipped, and I highly recommend max limit breaking it whenever you can. But if you follow the tips I give in this video, you should be fine. But let me know in the comments if you have any more questions or need any assistance. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like and consider subscribing so you can catch all my guides and spotlights as they go up. If you haven't already, do join the party over at our Discord, follow us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And until the next guide or servant spotlight, this is Soberoni, signing out. Later, and good luck.